Guys, I was planning on doing a giant video because this is history in the making, the first autofocus anamorphic lens. But Sedona decided to snap her ACL. So I pretty much had to cancel all my November plans, all of my trips, all my jobs, all of my shoots. I couldn't leave her side because the surgery, we'll find out if it actually worked. But so while Blazar did give me early access to this lens, they're not telling me what to say. They're not even paying me. If you think I am biased, you are correct. I am biased for anamorphic. Guess what? You can click off the video if you don't trust this video. Over the past like 5 or 6 years of me doing YouTube, I have covered multiple anamorphics, and I was always frustrated because a lot of the budget ones didn't look like all the classic films that I loved. But they did not tell me what to say. They are definitely not paying me to do this video. Majority of the videos that I've done for them haven't actually been sponsored aside from them giving me the lenses, which every other brand has given me lenses. Now, when Blazar first hit the market, you know, they're kind of, I don't know if we should say innovating or just giving us what we wanted or what I wanted, which is barrel distortion and more character and, you know, more of the look that I obsess over when it comes to like Panavision C and like all my favorite films. So no, I am not doing this video just to get on Blazar's good side. I really don't if you buy this lens or not. I'm making this video because I am excited, and I know other like-minded people like me are equally excited, and they're curious what this lens looks like. That's why I am making this video. So here's some actual insider information that I don't know if I should be disclosing or not with you know, all of the lens manufacturing, but
all right, guys, as I sit here editing this video, I'm chuckling to myself because I have almost zero footage of the lens itself because I have been using this lens so much. This is the Blazar Apex Super 35 1.33x autofocus anamorphic. This is a first ever. Now, I've been using this lens like crazy on multiple shoots, as you're seeing from all this B-roll right now. You'll see right off the bat, some of my shots have almost like a helio swirliness type look to it, but also like this modern sharpness and something just unique about it. We'll get into how I'm doing that, and it involves around shooting it in full frame.
You guys can see this actually has a lot of character for being a 1.33x anamorphic. Now, we just done like 3 shots on the new Kato 40mm, and so I'm interested in seeing what Jericho thinks on, you know, a 2x versus 1.33x.
The 1.33 feels like it has way more juice
Than this?
Yeah.
Go wide open on this.
I know that's why, because we're actually using this like for real shooting.
And then
so
go
like,
to a close focus like we are in here. Or yeah, go to like 2.5 feet.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty juicy. I like how it reverse. Okay, it gets crazier on this. However, I don't know, like,
I think
it's a lot. It's a lot.
So what, with this being 1.33 and a Super 35, we're shooting on full frame. You know, you're able to get a little bit more clean results, wide open, but still with some character. So this lens does have its own totally look to it.
The number one question I've been getting about this lens is the full frame coverage, because again, this is a Super 35mm lens, but let's see what it can do. All right, guys, we're back on the Sony a7C II, and we are in the APS-C mode. Let's talk about full frame. Let me switch it over real quick. So we're looking at the back of the Monitor Plus app. Later on, when you see the autofocus test, I'll do a disclaimer. You see the autofocus box floating on top of my head? That's why. So when you de-stretch it, it doesn't de-stretch the autofocus point as well. So you can see it is actually tracking my eyeball there and my face. Oh, almost ate it. See, there's vignetting. Let me go and turn the de-stretch back on. Now, if I am planning to do a final like anamorphic crop for my deliverable, so like a final 2-4-1 crop, I will just put this in APS-C mode and I would just rock it like that. But how I've been using this is in a final 2-to-1 delivery. So I'll turn on my crop markers right here. Now, this isn't the most accurate representation of this. Based on all the videos that you see on here, I deliver them in a 2-to-1 final crop ratio. So when I shoot on full frame on this lens, basically all I'm doing is importing the footage. I'm doing the de-stretch in DaVinci, the 1.33x, then I drop it on the 2-to-1 timeline, and then I click fill. Now, when you do that, you still will get just a tiny bit of vignetting up in the corners. Sometimes I actually don't mind it. All it needs is like a 1.06 crop. So not even a 1.1 crop to get the full clearance out of there. And the past few videos that you guys have seen on this channel have been shot on this Blazar Apex. And so I absolutely love shooting this lens in full frame. If you're gonna do like a 2-to-1 or 16:9 final deliverable,
this lens is stunning. Like this is beautiful. It reminds me of Shogun. I know I just triggered a bunch of you gatekeeping anamorphic people, and you know, those lenses those are like $100,000 lenses they use. It looks nothing like that. If you go and watch that show, or just go to Shot Deck and you can like look at the screenshots from it, there's a lot of times where the edges are insanely distorted and warpy, and there's a bunch of funky stuff happening, and it almost looks like they were pushing the limits of the lens. What I always found interesting about that show is they didn't do a final anamorphic crop. I think it's like a 2:1 crop as well. And so that's kind of what this look has been reminding me of. So if you see all the swirliness and the extra increase in juice of character, that's because I'm shooting it on full frame. So I'm going past its limits. I get all the Karens in my comments saying, that's not character, that's defects, and you blah, 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 blah. For years, we've been marketed that, oh, if you like want to be a professional and you want to be having the best of the best, you got to buy this ultra perfect, clinical, clean, sharp lens. Meanwhile, Hollywood is still using vintage lenses. Hollywood is even, look at Greg Fraser. His past like films are insanely gritty and they're absolutely stunning. I don't see all the gatekeepers and haters and Karens hating on Greg Fraser. Merry freaking Christmas. Are you guys ready for this? I don't know if you guys are ready for this. Here we go. Boom. I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of loving that. So obviously these are silver flares. I don't believe Blazar plans on making blue flares anymore, which I'm really bummed about. But the white balance on this flashlight is 4,000. I know I'm weird that I keep track of the white balance of my flashlights. You guys know I absolutely hate when people do flare tests with their phone because this is a little pinpoint source of light. And you know, flares are only gonna look so good when you do that. And you can see they have a blue tint. Well, this is gonna be a weird request, but I kind of wish there was a lens hood for this because sometimes when the flares hit like the top over here, outside, it does give me a flare sometimes that I don't love. It's kind of just random and I feel like it doesn't have a lot of intention behind it. So dare I say a lens hood on a autofocus anamorphic would be kind of cool. Phone light's actually a little bit more difficult to flare it out, which is a good sign. We don't want it to like flare out too hard. All right, guys, this is our sharpness test. I am pretty sure I am dead focused right on that point right there. We're at T1.8, so we are wide open, and we are 2 feet and 4 inches right there on our focus barrel. And we have 2 inches left before we go into minimum focus. So just right next to minimum focus. And I hope that this is in fact in focus. So now let's just go to T2. I'm just looking at the back of the Sony to see where I'm at T2. So right about there. Also guys, while we're doing this test, it's a good chance for you guys to see what the bokeh does as we close down. Blazar is marketing these lenses as, you know, having more anamorphic character than a standard 1.33x. Wide open, you guys saw in the comparison, or you guys will see in the comparison, that is a fact. But personally, I have zero clue how they are accomplishing that. So now we're at T2.8, and it looks like that anamorphic bokeh is holding up. At least from the back of my screen, this doesn't look like a standard 1.33x stretch. So that's at T4. We still have a good amount of anamorphic bokeh. I really don't know how Blazar is doing that. It's very interesting. And then let's go to T5, 6. My shutter is at 1/13th, so I don't know if that's gonna hurt sharpness, but yeah, you guys could clearly see wide open. This is Blazar's sharpest lens. They are definitely capable of doing sharper while still keeping affordable. That's the hard part, guys, is making, you know, these lenses, but keeping them affordable, but still giving us a lot of quality while not stripping away all of the character. And just to keep with the theme, again, this is the Sony 40mm f2.5. We are wide open on there, and you can see that's what regular spherical bokeh looks like. And, you know, really clinical sharpness out of a Sony lens. But let's close down that aperture. So once again, you guys can see the big difference when it comes between spherical and, you know, anamorphic. We're about arm lengths away from the front on the lens there. I'm looking dead center it. I'm sorry, I'm all broken out. Again, I've been locked in this house for 2 weeks now with my dog, and her stitches come out tomorrow. Then we find out, you know, what we could do. But again, you guys can see the autofocus working there, and then the minimum focus, picking up my face. We're doing it through the glasses. Still holding autofocus right until there. That's about MIMS. Let's switch to the Laowa Nanomorph. Well, sad news. It looks like my Nanomorph is broke. What the heck? All right, guys, now we have an Atlas Mercury 42 millimeters. We're at T2.2. So now we're about arm's length again. This is a 1.5x D-stretch lens. So you tell me how that character's looking. Did I nail focus on the first try? Kind of, sort of. So there you guys go. This is the Atlas Mercury 42 millimeter. This is one of my favorite lenses. I know you guys think I'm like this Blazar shill, but the Mercuries I think are the best 1.5x lenses out there right now. Granted, I think they're like $8,000 a pop, where like the Blazar Remuses are like $800 a pop or a grand or something like that. So pretty big difference. Now, speaking of, let's put a Blazar Remus on. So now we're on the Blazar Remus 50 millimeter. We're wide open at T2 and I am an arm's length away. And you see, that's what we're getting on this Remus 50 millimeter. Remus. Now let's go to the next spot. Did I nail that focus again? I'm probably a little bit soft in the eye, but again, this is a 1.5x D-stretch lens. I say we put a Sony on now. I have the Sony 40 millimeter T2.5. So let's throw that on. So we're wide open at T2.5, and this is the Sony 40 millimeter at f2.5. I am an arm's length away right there. You can see what that looks like. You see very sharp. Obviously, it's a similar compression to the other lenses, but we're losing all of the width on there. Then you can see we don't have any of that anamorphic bokeh, and that's the bokeh on a normal lens. Now let's go back to the Apex just to finish off this comparison. Super, again, guys, I don't think you guys get how freaking exciting this is. And the fact that this is 1.33x, but it's literally looking very similar to the 1.5x lenses that we had on there. The cool thing is, even when I'm back here, it almost feels like it has more separation than, I do have the Laowa Nanomorph zoomed, but I don't think that's fair because we're comparing primes here. But yeah, crazy how much character is in here. But let's move on to the next thing here.
So just a forewarning, guys, that's a 42 millimeter lens that we're comparing to two other 50 millimeter lenses. I didn't lay any marker points out or anything like that. I was just eyeballing everything. So no, this is not supposed to be some like crazy triple comparison thing. This is purely just so you guys can see what the Blazar Apex anamorphic bokeh looks like.
All right, guys, let's just do our pan test here to see what the distortion looks like. Overall, I'm not seeing anything too wonky from the back of the screen. Obviously, this is the 50 millimeter, so you know the 35 millimeter could be a different story. I have not tested it myself yet, so I have zero clue. But I will say this is Blazar's most controlled lens when it comes to distortion. All right, guys, time to go over autofocus. Obviously, this is the most important part to this whole video here, because if the autofocus doesn't work on this, it's like, what's the point? I was using this lens so much that I went out and bought a Sony a7C II. So I've been using it on this camera a lot. I've used it on the Sony FX3. I've used it on the Nikon Z6 III. We are in the wide autofocus and I have face detection turned on. Obviously, we're in full frame mode because we're cropped in here. So on this camera, you could put it in wide mode, put face detection on, and it's going to do just fine. On the Sony FX3, it would kind of float a little bit, but I haven't tested it since I got the latest firmware. So we're going to test that together after this. On the Nikon Z6 III, it was working amazing. Almost, I would say maybe just as well as the Sony a7C II, but I feel like that's blasphemy to say because it's not native mount. And my brain's like, that can't be true. But yeah, let's push this autofocus and let's see what it's capable of. Again, right now I am in wide mode with face detection turned on, and you see it crushes. Like, let's try to get to minimum focus. Yeah, look at that. That's great. Oh, still focusing. And I'm kind of in the dark here too. So you guys can see this thing is legit. Let's see if I turn around what it does. It might float off of me there. No? All right. See, okay, there we go. So obviously we are in the full frame mode, so you guys can see the vignetting. So we are outside of the scope of how this lens is supposed to be used, but that's how we've been using it. So let's go to Super 35 mode and test that. Okay, now that we're in the Super 35 mode, let's do some object tracking and see what it's capable of. I need to turn off face detection first though. So let's just test what it does if I bring this camera into frame. I do have the settings set so it racks slower. And again, I have my AF tracking speed set to like 2 or something. It's like the second from lowest setting. But let's do tap to track. So you see we're tracking there. Oh, it's holding up. So I'm going to throw on the FX3 after this, and you guys are going to see the difference. Now, the reason I went out and bought this Sony a7C II is because it's one of Sony's cameras that have their new AI autofocusing chips in there, which really makes the difference when it comes to this lens. Now, before we switch over to the FX3, one thing that I've learned about this lens is your focus areas are going to be your best friend. So there was this one shot I was trying to do where the lens is focusing on me and I whip a gun over and I put it kind of towards the camera. It took me like 15 to 20 minutes to figure out what I was doing wrong because it just wasn't working. So you see right there, it actually worked fine, which is kind of annoying that it just worked like that. So I went to a center. I was like, oh, if I get it dead in the center there, it should work. That's annoying. It's working now. So you guys can see we are in the wide mode. So when I originally was using the FX3 with this lens, it was with the Apex's original firmware. So since then, we've had, I think, 2 firmware updates. So this is honestly working a lot better than it was originally. Before, if I was just sitting down and just, doing a talking head like this, sometimes the face detection would just float off and it would just like start picking up random things in the background. But I was going in and I was changing it to zone, and then in zone mode, it was focusing just fine there because I was basically limiting the distractions that it could pick up. Like you can see that little box flashing up. So on the Sony a7C II, I don't ever get anything like that. Yeah, you see, so it's not as confident as a Sony a7C II, but I think these settings could be dialed in. So this is the big difference too. On the Sony a7C II, I have this set to 2, and then this on the Sony a7C II, I think I have that set to like 2 or 3. So now we're back in zone mode. Let's just keep doing this. So on the a7C II, like this thing's pretty sticky. On the FX3, let's try to trip it up. Yeah, you see. So you kind of have to give it a moment because again, it's a 1.33x squished image going into the sensor. Like the sensor's never seen anything like this while autofocus is running. So again, you just have to keep going into your settings depending on what your scenario is. And yeah, you can see just turning that up helped it a lot more. On the Sony a7C II, it just feels more confident. So again, that's the big difference when it comes to the AI chip. That's kind of what I assume was going to be the case as well. Yeah, and let's try some tap to tracking. It's gonna be hard because I'm so close to the, here we go. Let's give it a chance here. So you can see basic stuff. It's actually doing really well, at least from what I could see from the back of the screen. Even when it goes into that shade, still holding up. Now let's let's try to trip it up here. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, it's working a lot better since that last firmware update. Huh, that's good to know. And this is the adapter. This little thing is a game changer if you're a Nikon shooter or if you're switching from cameras to cameras. All right, guys, now we're filming on the Nikon Z6 III. And you can see it's working. This is crazy, guys. We have an autofocus anamorphic E mount going into an E to Z mount autofocus adapter into the Nikon Z6 III, and it's working. That's wild. So yeah, guys, we're shooting in RAW right now. This is crazy. I'm telling you guys, Nikon is very underrated. This actually works better than the a7C II. Oh, there we go. Oh no, did it catch it? That's wild. Yo, okay. Is it on it? No, it's not on it, but it's still tracking it. So even on the edges, so you guys saw on the Sony a7C II, again, we're in full frame mode, but you can see it did lose me. And again, it's because we're not in the right mode. That is going to be the trick to this lens, no matter what camera you're on. So again, this is the thing that you're going to run into. Let me go back into manual, back into auto, and now we're back in action there. Again, we're connecting a bunch of things that aren't supposed to be connected. That is working way better than it should. I would say this test is inconclusive so far. just purely because out of the past month of using this lens, I keep getting different results with it. I think they've sent me 2 or 3 firmware updates on it. So for the most part, it works fine. Now, I did a video teaching how I shoot like my mini docs. Got that all on the Blackmagic Pixis with the Katos. And then B-Cam was this Nikon Z6 III with the Apex on it. Time though, he was doing tap to track and he would just watch it and make. So here's kind of the reality behind lens manufacturing that a lot of people aren't aware of, especially the people who like to talk a lot. Lens manufacturing is not a democracy. They are private companies, and whoever the top dog is the final yes or no on what a lens should be designed like. So whatever they believe in is what the final output will be. So while some companies and the owners of those companies love, more clinical, flat, cleaner anamorphics, that's totally fine. There's a lot of people that like that. There's other companies out there who aren't ran just by business people and engineers. They're ran by other filmmakers and movie lovers who subscribe to the similar ideology that I have, and I would say majority of other people have when it comes to anamorphics. A lot of those films being like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Blade Runner, like anything shot by Steven Spielberg or Quentin Tarantino. A lot of them use the Panavision C lenses. Chinatown, I could just keep naming movies. Literally all my favorite films were shot on Panavision C lenses. Some of them also shot on Hawk anamorphics as well, which they're totally different, but they have similar characteristics. I would say like barrel distortion and blah, blah, blah. I'll let you guys translate that how you want. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to this. These are all paintbrushes. So with all that said, I would say Blazar also subscribes to, loving that type of look with the barrel distortion and some slight softness, not too clinically sharp and yada, everything I just talked about. It's obvious that Blazar likes that look more. There's also a truth to be said about price point. In order for companies to keep things affordable, obviously they can't offer the top-notch stuff, but don't get it twisted. Obviously, if they wanted to, they could do that. Trust me. Just know this is a lot more complicated than you think, and the decisions being made, it's a lot more in depth than you think as well. So I think this is I'm going to do a whole nother video on this, but I think a lot of people's fondness over clinical sharpness and perfection, which this is an art form. What the fuck does perfection even mean? I think a lot of people have fallen into the trap of marketing where companies are like, look, we made the latest and greatest, super sharp, perfectly clinical, clear lens. Do we ask for that? And that was pretty much it for this video. Again, this is crazy that we finally have an anamorphic autofocus lens. Yes, it's only 1.33x, but again, since Blazar loves also, keeping barrel distortion and giving us some character in there, it's kind of cheating some like extra juice into it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Tell me what you think down below. Peace.